All right, guys, what's up? Chris Lee, aka Tony, singer, songwriter, producer, professional audio engineer, owner of United Destiny Entertainment. So check this out, guys. I'm gonna talk to you about some really important stuff today. It is audio related. It's very important. This goes out to a lot of my clients and people who just need to know. So check this out. If you are one of them people who are recording with preamps, two preamps, there's something very important that you need to know, and I'm going to tell you. 9 times out of 10, if you're recording with a preamp or two preamp, you got, some kind of tube like this in there or bigger. All right. So I have all kind of different tube preamps. I got the Avalon 737. I got some art stuff. I just got a lot of stuff with tubes in it. I even got little PreSonus tube pre's that I even changed out the tube in it, but this is pretty much the same exact thing, but just a smaller version. Now, with that being said, what's so important? Why do you need to talk to us about this? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of my clients have been recording with these preamps, but there's some that they don't understand, which you probably don't understand as well. If you're a professional audio engineer, then of course, yeah, I'm pretty sure you understand, but there's some out there who don't, so I'm going to mention it anyways. Basically, these nice little tubes in our preamps gives our vocals some nice saturated, warm, tubey sound. Obviously, these things heat up. The vocal signal passes through them, and it gives your vocals a nice heated, a nice, warm, saturated sound, if you will. Now, with that being said, a lot of you don't know that the longer you leave that thing on, the more your sound changes, the more tonality changes, the more the warmth, the saturation, it gets more saturated the longer you keep it on. Now, why is this important? I'm going to tell you why it's important. Because if you're one of them people who, and I'm guilty of it, I'm one of them people who, I don't really write my songs down on pen and paper. I'm all off the brain. Like, I can think of a whole concept in my head and go ahead and put this song down, create a beat, start recording, and be done with it. Now, this is the thing about that, though. I get my idea for, say I turn the preamp on. I get my idea for the first verse, or I start working on a hook. I spend however long on the hook or the verse, 30 minutes, hour, I don't know how long, however I spend. But the problem is when it's time for me to do the second verse or the bridge, it probably been 2 hours then passed or 3 hours then passed. That means that the sound of my vocals are going to sound different now because the preamp has been on for a long time. That tube is hotter. That means that my vocals are going to sound more saturated than what they did during the first verse. So, with that being said, if you people never knew that, you know now. The longer you keep that preamp on with that actual tube in it, and the longer you take to record something, once you cut it on, the tube is not hot at all. It's not, so your vocals aren't going to be warm. It's going to be cold. You just turned it on. Your vocals are going to sound nice, dry, and present. The minute that you leave that tube pre on for a couple hours and you try to record the next verse, it's going to make your verse sound a lot more saturated. Your vocals are going to sound a lot warmer, and your vocals are going to sound open, more open. I noticed that when my preamp stays on for a long time and I record something, my vocals are more saturated and more open, and they don't match with the first half of the song, and that's a big problem. And the reason why that's a big problem is because when you say if you send your project to me, when I start mixing that first half and I start putting my plugins and all that kind of stuff on it, it's gonna sound completely different than the second half. The second half is going to sound like I recorded inside of an untreated room with no padding, because it's going to sound so open and saturated. It's almost kind of sounds like I'm recording into a bathroom or inside of a bathroom or something like that. So you guys need to make sure that you take note of this. I didn't want this video to be long, but I want you guys to know how important it is. I mixed the client's project today. His song was nice. Shout out to Cook, Lil Duke. His track was nice. It was a banging track, but there was one problem that we ran into. Not only was, his studio not treated, he'll be getting stuff to be able to treat his studio, but the problem that we ran into was the first verse didn't sound nothing like the second verse. The second verse was so saturated because he uses the tube preamp as well. And 9 times out of 10, he probably didn't record it at the same time or get his verse knocked out fast enough within that time frame to be able to get the same sound, the tonality of the saturation from the tube. So, with that being said, guys, when you use these things, when you use them, I don't care if you're using the Avalon, Arc tubes, little pre-sonic tube pre's like this, whatever you use, I have two options for you. Either you can record your track and get it knocked out, you know what I'm saying? Work on you, work on your performance, get great at what you do as a recording artist and be able to go in a studio and knock that project out and get it done. Or you can do what I do sometimes. What I like to do is when I start working on a song, I'll record the hook, which isn't going to change because I could just copy and paste it. But then when I work on my first verse, before I record the second verse or a bridge, I go ahead and cut that tube preamp down, cut it off, actually cut it off. So I'm not recording with too much saturation and my sound isn't pretty much different. Now you're not going to get it exact unless you cut that thing off, let it cool off, and then record your verse, and then cut it off again, and then record your verse again. Now, I'm not talking about like cut it off for like 3 minutes or something like that. I mean, let it cool down. Let it cool down, cut it on, listen to your vocals, see what your vocals sound like, and see if you actually got the sound that you're looking for. That matches with the first verse. Record a little snippet. But I'm telling you guys, if you don't do that, if you're going to take a long time to record your song, I'm telling you, your vocals are going to sound oversaturated. It's not going to be a good sound. You're going to get mad because you're going to think that it's just a room not being treated, or you think it's just going to sound like reverb. It's going to sound open and too saturated. If you go for that sound, then cool. Wait 3 hours and, I don't know, 2 hours and then record the whole the whole song all the way through. But if you're not going to do that, then you need to make sure that your tonality of the first verse and the second verse, as well as the hook, all match each other. Now, I've worked in $5 billion studios. I've seen this done by the head engineer on different people's projects. And it honestly pissed me off because I think it's tacky. I think if you're going to do a song that is meant to sound real saturated, then cool, I got that. But leaving the tube preamp on all day long, and then have some rappers come in there, some singers come in there, and record a track that sounds overly saturated, that is not a great sound at all. I don't care how much you like the saturated tube sound. I mean, it's personal preference, I get that, but at the same time, if it sounds good, it's good. But if it don't sound good, then it's not good. So don't do it. Don't do it. Don't overuse the tube saturation. If you're going to be using tube pre's that got drive knobs and all that kind of stuff on there, just don't overdo it. When you overdo it, when you record two Pro Tools like that, so if I recorded through the preamp to Pro Tools and I overdid it, the problem is that when it's time to add plugins and do my mixing and do my thing, it's not really going to come out right because I'm going to be adding compressors and stuff that's going to be able to make my vocals louder, make them more bigger sounding, and if it sounds too saturated or too open, that's not the desired sound that you're looking for. Now, if that's what you want to go for, then cool. By all means, do it. But I'm just advising you guys, if you're going to be recording with tube pre's, make sure that you get ready to get in the studio and knock the track out and not try not to spend 5-6 hours on it, or cut it off. I do it. I don't think it's harmful at all. I record my first verse and it sounds, a little saturated. I like that. And what I do is basically cut it off and try to get it to match after I cut it back on. So that's just my little tip for you guys. I hope you guys pay attention to it. I hope you guys take my advice. For anybody who's going to try to give me a thumbs down on this video and tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about, send me a track and I'll prove you wrong. Record one track right now, cut your preamp on, tube pre, and record through it as soon as you cut it on. Then wait 3 hours and then go ahead and record the next verse. Or 2 hours. and go ahead and record the next verse, and then listen to them. Listen to the tonality. Listen to the saturation. It will affect your recording. So if you don't like that, I advise you not to do it. Thanks for watching this video. Subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you have any other tips, I'm open-minded to that as well. Thanks for watching.